Namaskar, all of you. Today we will be trying to understand the metaphysical constitution of tanmatra. So, tanmatra are subtler than even the subatomic particles of modern physics. And therefore, this is a part of metaphysics. So, this is the point to be noted by people of our times, because what is subtlest for us today is subatomic particles. And now this is something much more subtler than that, and therefore this is metaphysics. So, we were considering the tanmatra, shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha, tanmatra, which are also called subtle elements, sukshma bhutas. They are sukshma, prithvi, ap, tej, vayu, akash bhutas. And the shabda is the subtlest of all the five. Not that all the five tanmatra are of same caliber or class. If you recall, in the last session we were considering this, that the subtlest of all is shabda. Then shabda gives rise to element of its generation and also contributes for subsequent bhuta, such as sparsha. And then sparsha turns out its element, which is vayu, and also contributes to engender the next tattva, which is teja tattva. The teja tanmatra gives rise to its element called teja tattva, mahabhuta, and also gives rise to the next tattva, which is aTanmatra. And the tanmatra of aTanmatra gives rise to its own element, which is called aTanmatra, and gives rise to next tanmatra, which is prithvi gandha tanmatra. So that's why we considered that akasha has one quality, vayu has two, tej has three, up has four, and prithvi has five. So these tanmatra are slowly becoming grosser, however they remain in metaphysics. So shabda tanmatra is the subtlest, less subtler is vayu tanmatra, less subtler is teja tanmatra, less subtler is aTanmatra, and further less subtler is prithvi tanmatra or gandha tanmatra. Now, tanmatra are engendered from ahankara. Ahankara is engendered from Mahat, and Mahat is engendered by Pradha, Mula Prakriti. Because Patanjali has given us the scheme from alinga comes Linga Matra, from Linga Matra comes avishesha, from avishesha comes vishesha. This was considered in earlier part of the sessions on the Patanjali Sutra, Vishesha, Vishesha, Linga Matra, Alingani, Guda Parvani. So today we are considering the tanmatra. Let us try to put in figure how the tanmatra would be. And again I repeat, there can be no such basis for diagram, because this is metaphysics. But for our comprehension, we are trying to put it in a diagrammatic form. The first one is Sanghatana of Shabda Tanmatra. constitution of Shabda Tanmatra. So, Shabda Tanmatra should be drawn for diagrammatic perception of it. Draw a small circle, and that should be circle of Mahat Tattva. So the small circle is of Mahat Tattva. Then there will be another circle, pericircle, outside that circle, which is Tamas-Ahankara circle. So that is Tamas-Ahankara. And then outside this circle, let's try to draw a square, which is Shabda Paramanu. It is Shabda Tanmatra on 3 sides, and on the 4th side of the square, it is Shabda Paramanu. So, Shabda Paramanu is going to do the second function of constituting the Sparsha Tanmatra, and then Sparsha Tattva, which is Vayu Tattva. So this is how is the constitution of Shabda Tanmatra, which you can get little idea about how this metaphysical particle is. That there is Mahat in it, at the center of it, then there is Tamas-Ahankara pervading it, and then there is that square which tells us about Shabda Tanmatra. And one side of the square, the 4th side of the square, is Shabda Paramanu. And this Paramanu has nothing to do with the Paramanu of modern physics, which is denoted for the particles of modern physics. Now, the Sparsha Tanmatra can be also understood graphically. So there will be first circle, small circle of Mahat. It will be pervaded by a little larger circle outside it, which is Tamas-Ahankara. There will be one more circle now, which is of Shabda Tanmatra, and then there will be square outside that circle, which will be Sparsha Tanmatra, Sparsha on 3 sides as Tanmatra, and the 4th side of it will be Sparsha Paramanu. I repeat, this Paramanu should not be mistaken to the concept of Paramanu, which is in the vernacular language for subatomic particles of physics, particle physics. So now you will see that there is additional circle coming in Sparsha Tanmatra. In the diagram for Akash, the Shabda Tanmatra, we had 2 circles. And now we have 3 circles inside the square. Now coming to Rupa Tanmatra, there will be one more addition of circle. So the first small circle is Mahat, another circle over it is Tamas-Ahankara, another circle over it is of Shabda, and another circle over it of Sparsha. And then comes the square. The 3 sides of it are for Rupa Tanmatra, and one side of the square is for Rupa Paramanu. Then comes the Rasa Tanmatra. So there will be addition of one more circle now. So small circle is Mahat, outer circle to that is Tamas-Ahankara, outer circle to that is Shabda, outer circle to that is Sparsha, outer circle to that is Rupa, and then comes the square. The three sides of it are for Rasa Tanmatra, and the fourth side of it are for Rasa Paramanu. Then comes the Gandha Tanmatra, where you will find one more circle added or getting added. So, small circle of Mahat, outer circle to it is Tamas-Ahankara, further outer to it is Shabda, further outer to that is Sparsha, further outer to that is Rupa, and further outer to that is Rasa. And then comes the square. So, three sides of it will be Gandha Tanmatra, and the fourth sides of it will be Gandha Paramanu. And the Gandha Paramanu will give birth to Prithvi Tattva. So, wherever the Paramanu, which is denoted in every square, that is causal for generating the next Tattva. So, this is how the five tanmatras are to be understood, which will show you that the square is becoming larger progressively because it has to include circles. In the first Shabda Tanmatra, there are two circles. Sparsha Tanmatra, there are three circles. Rupa Tanmatra, there are four circles. Rasa Tanmatra, there are five circles. And Gandha Tanmatra, there are six circles. So then we understand that the Linga Matra Mahat Tattva is inherently there in all the tanmatra and all the tanmatras, the five tanmatras. So, point to be noted is that every tanmatra has inherently the Tamas-Ahankara and Mahat Tattva. And as the tanmatra become grosser, they start including previous tanmatra circle as well. So, this is just to have idea, and this will tell us that Shabda Tanmatra is the subtlest of Tanmatra and Gandha Tanmatra is the grossest of Tanmatra. However, all these are metaphysical concepts. They are not to be cited even with electron microscope or whatever microscope that might come up. So, Vyasa's commentary is in support of what we have just now postulated. What does Vyasa say? He says, Shad avisheshaha. There are 6 avishesha categories, which you should recall: asmita plus Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. The 5 tanmatra and asmita together become Shad avishesha. So, Shad avisheshaha. Tadyatha Shabda tanmatram, Sparsha tanmatram, Rupa tanmatram, Rasa tanmatram, Gandha tanmatram cha iti ek, dvi, tri, chatuh, pancha lakshanaha, Shabdadayaha, pancha avisheshaha. So, this is the supporting statement to what so far was postulated about Tanmatra. So, here Vyasa is telling us that avishesha paranamas are 6. Avishesha paranamas come from Linga Matra, that is Mahat Tattva or Buddhi Tattva. So, from Buddhi Tattva we get 6 avishesha paranamas, and they are respectively Shabda Tanmatra, Sparsha Tanmatra, Rupa Tanmatra, Rasa Tanmatra, Gandha Tanmatra and Asmita. Now, Vartikar Sri Vijnana Bhikshu has something else to convey here, something additional that he wants to convey to us. So he says, In Shabda Tanmatra, there is only one dharma, one characteristic. And Sparsha Tanmatra, you have two. And then each subsequent Tanmatra, there is addition of one every time. That is why Vyasa tells us about Ek, Dvi, Tri, Chatu, Pancha Lakshanaha. So in this Tanmatra, there are these dharma. There are no Shabda, there are no Shanta Ghora dharmas in Tanmatra. The Shanta Ghora Tanmatra characters are going to come later when there is a gross manifestation. After Panchikaranam, there will be Shanta Ghora Mudhadi dharmas. These are metaphysical principles and therefore they do not become substrate for Shanta Ghora Muda Dharma in the Chitta. However, once it is quintuplicated matter called Panchikruta Mahabhut, then you get Shanta Ghora Mudhadi Dharma in the quintuplicated elements. And that is one of the reasons why it is called avishesha. There is no visheshatva of Shanta Ghora Muda Dharma in the Chitta. And to testify his stand here, he quotes Srimad Vishnu Puranam 1.2.45, which says, Tanmatrani avisheshani avishesha tatohi te na shanta api ghoraste na mudascha visheshinaha. So Shanta Ghora Muda, these are Vishesha Dharmas and they are not given rise on the plane of Tanmatra. Therefore, they are called avishesha. So that is the clarification given by Vijnana Bhikshu. So it is very subtle part of creation. That is why it is called metaphysical creation. And the metaphysical creation always underlies phenomenal creation. Now, a question comes up that when the tanmatras are contributing for subsequent tanmatras, previous tanmatra contributing and generating the subsequent tanmatra, then why not mention the causality in them? Why it is not said that Shabda Tanmatra give rise to Sparsha, then Sparsha gives rise to Teja, Teja gives rise to Rasa Tanmatra, and Rasa Tanmatra gives rise to Gandha Tanmatra. Why this is not expressed? So, there are so many testimonials available in the Shastras. The Tanmatra gives, the Shabda Tanmatra gives rise to Akasha Tattvam, and Sparsha Tanmatra gives rise to Vayu. And this is how it is mentioned. So Shabda Tanmatra is parental to Akasha Tattvam, Sparsha Tanmatra is parental to Vayu Tattvam, and Teja Tanmatra is parental to Teja Tattva, Rasa Tanmatra is parental to Ap Tattva, and Gandha Tanmatra is parental to Prithvi Tattva. So there are hundreds and hundreds of statements which you get in Shastras. Although we saw that from Shabda Paramanu you get the Vayu Tattva, from Vayu Paramanu you get the Teja Tattva, etc., etc. In subtle form, of course. There is no express mention to this. However, therefore a question is raised, prima facie view is raised up. Are you faultily making the description that you have? which Vyasa told us, Eka, Dvi, Tri, Chatush, Panchalakshanaha. That means they are engendering each other. Akashad, Vayor, Agne, Adbhyam, Prithvim, etc. So how do you validate your statement is the question here. So in Vishnu Puranam, Sri Parashara Muni, while describing 24 principles, has something to tell us. So what does he say? He says, Mahat Tattva is permeated by Pradhana Tattva. Then from Mahat Tattva comes Vaikarika, that is Satvik Ahankara, Taijasa, that is Rajasa Ahankara, and Bhutadi, that is Tamas-Aham. So from Mahat Tattva we get Ahankara Tattva. Now, to understand the subtlety here, the Ahankara Tattva is of three kinds, which the Sankhya Shastra mentions. Vaikarika Ahankar, Taijasa Ahankar, Bhutadi Ahankar. Vaikarika means the Sattva major Ahankara or Sattva component of Ahankar Tattva. Taijasa means Rajasa component of Ahankar. And Bhutadi means the Tamasa component of Ahankara Tattva. So there are three types of Ahankars which are generated from Mahat Tattva. So the Trigunaatmakata is more kind of express or more conspicuous in Ahankar Tattva. It is not that the Buddhi is without Trigunas. The Buddhi is also with Trigunas. Pradhana Tattva is with Trigunas. But it gets accentuated in Ahankara stage of the Sankhya Tattvas. And then there are three kinds of Ahankars mentioned, namely Vaikarika, that is Satvik, Taijasa, that is Rajasic, and Bhutadi, that is Tamasic. And this Bhutadi Ahankara is parental to Bhautika Srushti. Because it is Trigunatmaka, accentuated Trigunatmaka, the Indriyatmaka and Bhutatmaka Srushti is generated out of it. This is what Sri Parashar Muni tells us in Srimad Vishnu Puranam. So the Pradhana is inherently there in Mahat, and Mahat is there inherently in Ahankara, which is of three kinds. And from Tamas-Ahankara that we saw, it gives rise to Shabda Tanmatra. And then you get Shabda Mahabhuta, which is Akasha Mahabhuta from Shabda Tanmatra. And the Shabda Tanmatra gets muted into form of Mahabhuta, which is the Vishesha Parva. And then also Sparsha Tanmatra is engendered by that process. And the Sparsha Tanmatra is going to give rise to the next Tattva, which is Vayu Tattva. While Vayu Tattva is engendered, it also engenders a Paramanu for next Tattva, which is Teja Tattva. Teja Paramanu. So this we have just now seen, and this has validity from the Vishnu Puranam Parashara Vachanam. And Parashara Muni has expressly mentioned what we have just now seen and considered. So he mentions how from tanmatra the elements are born. So the prima facie view is answered with the help of quotation from Vishnu Purana, which appears in 1.2.34 to 44. And Vyasa has postulated what he has postulated based on Vishnu Puranam of Parashara Muni, who happens to be his father. So that is how this question has been answered. Bhikshu, while describing the process of it, he further makes it articulate. The Shabda Tanmatra and Shabda Paramanu turn out Akasha Tattvam. Then Shabda Paramanu and Sparsha Tanmatra turn out Vayu Tattvam. Then Sparsha Paramanu and Rupa Tanmatra turn out Teja Tattva. Rupa Tanmatra and Paramanu and Rupa Tanmatra turns out the Rasa Jala Tattva, Ap Tattva, and then similarly it happens to Prithvi. Now here Vijnana Bhikshu mentions Shabda Paramanu for Akasha, and then Shabda Paramanu plus Sparsha Tanmatra Vayu. Then Shabda Paramanu Yukta Sparsha Paramanu plus Sparsha Tanmatra gives Vayu Tattva. And then Shabda Sparsha Paramanu Yukta Rupa Tanmatra gives rise to Rasa Tanmatra Ap Tattva. And then Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasa Paramanu Yukta Rasa Tanmatra and Gandha Tanmatra together give rise to Prithvi. So he has elucidated what we just now postulated, also diagrammatically what we displayed. Now there is a Paramanu that is coming in between. Now this is implication in Sankhya philosophy. Otherwise in the Tattvas of Sankhya Darshanam you don't get Paramanu concept. But it is there, it is implied by the Sankhya that we get in Srimad Vishnu Puranam. And that is why it becomes a parental component for the next Tanmatra to be turned out and subsequently the Bhuta to be turned out. So Paramanu is a mention that you get expressly in Vijnana Bhikshu's commentary. Because that is a link for next tattva to be generated in subtle form first and later gross form. So it doesn't have its own status as such. It is only for transition of earlier tanmatra into subsequent tanmatra. So it has only transitory value and therefore it doesn't get defined as a tattva or principle in Sankhya. Therefore Sankhya will not speak about Shabda Paramanu, Sparsha Paramanu, Teja Paramanu, Rasa Paramanu, Gandha Paramanu. It will not speak about Paramanu. But it is there. And this is clearly postulated in the Sankhya of Srimad Vishnu Puranam, which Vijnana Bhikshu quotes. Otherwise, Taittiriya Upanishad has a very well-known quotation which is off-quoted, which is 2.1. Akashad Vayuhu Vayor Agnihi Agner Apaha Adbhyaha Prithvim. So, Vijnana Bhikshu has delineated on this aspect. So therefore, we have postulated what we have done so far. So it is to be noted that we are introduced to concept of threefold ahankara tattva, which is worth taking note of. Vaikarika, Rajasa and Bhutadi, which is respectively for Sattva, Raja and Tama. So these are five avisheshas, and the sixth avishesha, as Vyasa makes it clear, Shashtasya avishesho aTanmatra iti. The sixth avishesha is aTanmatra. So the five tanmatra together and asmita added, they become six, and therefore shad avisheshaha. And Vyasa has clearly mentioned that in his statement, Shashtasya avishesho aSmitamatra iti. So asmita paranama should be understood give rise to three kind of ahankara or asmita: sattvic, rajasic, tamasic, respectively vaikarika, rajasa and bhutadi. So from bhutadi you get the tanmatra. That is from tamasic component of that ahankara, the bhutadi. That means before the bhutas, tanmatra. The tanmatra are given rise by tamas-ahankara called bhutadi ahankara. So the pancha tanmatra are generated, and subsequently panchamahabhutas are generated. So panchamahabhutas become vishesha, tanmatra remain avishesha. Then the sattvic and rajas ahankar together primarily turn out ekadasha indriyas, which are again vishesha. And we had seen in earlier occasion that there is tamapradhana triguna ahankara giving rise to indriyas, mahabhutas, sukshma mahabhutas and sthula mahabhutas. So tamas preponderant trigunas in ahankar give rise to mahabhuta sukshma and then mahabhuta sthula. And sattva pradhan ahankar gives rise to indriyas. And there we saw that there is no third kind of parinama, because Patanjali is only mentioning two, bhutendriyatmakam. There are only two aspects, bhautik and aindriyatmaka, and there is no third. And we saw the logic behind it. With rajo ahankara diminished, there won't be any manifestation. Sattva guna is vibrant in quality, and that is needed for any kind of manifestation, which is either bhuta parinama or indriya parinama. So this is what we are considering the textual statements with regards to tanmatra. Ete sattamatrasya atmano mahat shad avishesha parinamaha is a conclusive statement of Vyasa. Ete sattamatrasya atmano mahat shad avishesha parinamaha. So from Mahat Tattva you get these six avishesha parinamas. So from Mahat, which is Linga Matra, comes the Parva of avishesha. Then avishesha is of six aspects, aspita plus tanmatra. So therefore shat parinamas. Now there are two views here. The Vijnana Bhikshu's opinion is that the Linga Matra is a single entity, and from that you get the ahankara, and then you get asmita plus 5 tanmatra, 6, avishesha paranamas. Therefore, it can be also described as Linga Matra in a diagram, a point, Linga Matra, then that generating Asmita, and then from Asmita you get Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasa Gandha. So Asmita is also avishesha, and the tanmatra engendered is also avishesha. So that is one diagram. That one dot for Mahat, and below that another dot for Asmita, and from Asmita showing 5 tanmatra. Or the other one is the Linga Matra Mahat, a dot, and from Linga Matra Mahat you have to show 6 branches. 1 is of Asmita and the 5 of tanmatra. So there are 2 views with regards to Guna Parva, which is transition from Mahat or Linga Matra to avishesha. So that also tells us Alinga is the subtlest, then less subtle to that is Linga Parva, Linga Matra Parva, then further subtle to that, less subtle to that is avishesha Parva, and further less subtle to that is vishesha Parva. So this is how we should understand these postulations of metaphysics, which comes to describe the avishesha Parva. And it is worth taking note of Vyasa's commentary later in 1.45, not the earlier part of Vyasa's commentary in Samadhi Pada, because now we are in Sadhana Pada and we are in 2.19. While in 1.45, Vyasa has mentioned, which is very interesting mention, Rasa tanmatram tejasasya rupa tanmatram vayaviyasya sparsha tanmatram akashasya shabda tanmatram iti tesham ahankaraha. So from Mahat there is actual generation of tanmatra utpatti, and this is to tell us that it is through ahankara only that such generations are taking place. The asmita tattva, ahankar tattva. And the Vindhya Vyasin has another opinion, who is another Sankhya-acharya. He has taken bypass, and therefore that opinion has not been embraced by the Sankhya school of Panchashikha-acharya. Now, just for the information's sake, let me quote some sutras from Sankhya Sutram for the metaphysics that we are dealing with. So in Sankhya Sutra 1.61, it says, Prakruter Mahan, Mahato Ahankaro, Ahankarat Panchatanmatrani, Ubhaya Indriyam. So the generation has been mentioned. While commenting on it in the Sankhya Pravachana Bhashyam of Vijnana Bhikshu, Ahankarasya Karyadvayam Tanmatrani Ubhaya Indriyam Cha. So this is the exposition given by Vijnana Bhikshu in a Sankhya Pravachana Bhashya on the same sutra. You also get a Sankhya Karika of Ishvara Krishna, which is 22nd Karika, Prakruter Mahan Tatho Ahankaras Tasmad Ganascha Shodashakaha. So there is also mention of 6 avishesha in Sankhya Karika, 22nd Sankhya Karika. Then in the 24th Sankhya Karika, Abhimano ahankara tasma dvividha pravartate sarga ekadashascha ganastanmatra panchakasyaiva. So it mentions how from Linga Ma comes avishesha parva of aspita as well as tanmatra. The Yukti Deepika, one of the commentaries on Sankhya Karika says, ahankarat pancha tanmatrani iti sarve. Then Vachaspati Mishra in Tattva Kaumudi, which is a commentary on Sankhya Karika, says, Dvivida eva sargo ahankarat indriya dvaya tanmatra panchakascha eva. And we saw there are only two kinds of parinamas. Sattva minor and Tama minor, and not Rajo minor, if you recall in the last session. And therefore he says there are only two kinds of parinamas according to Vachaspati Mishra in Tattva Kaumudi. Dvividha eva sargo ahankarat. Indriyadvaya and tanmatra panchakaha eva. Then Mathara Vritti, another commentary, very old commentary on Sankhya Karika, says, Tasmat ahankara shodashako gana utpadyate tamasat mahabhutadi namna pancha tanmatrani shabdadini. So this is what he gives in the commentary on 22nd Karika. Then there is another commentary called Jayamangala, ascribed to Shankaracharya. Tasmat ahankarat shodashako gana utpadyate ekadashendriyani pancha tadmatrani ityartaha. So this is again on the 22nd Karika. In Vishnu Puranam 1.2.46, Bhuta tanmatra sargo ayam ahankarastu tamasat. So from Tamas-Ahankara, Bhuta Tanmatra are given birth. The Kurma Puranam 4.20, Panchamahabhutani Ahankara Tanmatrani cha Jagnire. Then Mahabharat, the 12th Parva, in the 315th chapter of Kumbhakona meditation edition, 308th of Gorakhpur edition, and 298th chapter in Swadhyaya edition. The quotation is thus: Ahankarasya sambhutam manobhuta gunatmakam. So, this is how the avishesha tattva, avishesha leg of creation has been discussed by us so far. Now this avishesha comes from Linga Matra Mahat Tattvam. Now what is this Mahat Tattvam? Let's try to understand, because avisheshas are coming from the parental body called Mahat Tattvam. So what is this Mahat Tattvam? How it has been characterized? So let me tell you as information that in Nyaya Kosha, which is a philosophical dictionary, they say Sankhyastu Mula Prakrutehe Buddha Rupa Parinama Vishesho Mahat Tattvam. So it's the parinama of the Mula Prakruti, Pradhana Tattvam. This Mahat Tattva has been severally described. What we call as Buddhi Tattva, it's called Mahat Tattva, it is called Mahat Brahma. So it has been severally described in different ways, in different connotations. This principle has been described because that is the first principle of Sankhya for Sargavastha. So the whole phenomenal creation will have seed in Mahat Tattva. That's what it is called Mahat Brahma in Bhagavad Gita. So let us see what one of the Sankhyacharyas called Matharacharya, in his Mathara Vritti on Sankhya Karika, 22nd Sankhya Karika, he tells us, Tasya, that means Alingasya, Tasya Prakrutehe Mahan Utpadyate, Prathama Kaschit, Mahan Buddhi Mati Pragnya Samvitti Khyati Chitihi Smritihi Harihi Haraha Hiranyagarbha iti Paryayaha. So he gives the Paryaya Vachaka namas, which are very interesting. Mahan, Buddhi, Mati, Pragnya, Samvitti, Khyati, Chitti, Smriti, Hari, Haraha, Hiranyagarbha. So, it is no point in really ridiculing the Sankhya philosophy as the Vedantins have done, that it is Nirishwara Sankyam. Because Sankhya Karika is a text of Nirishwara Sankyam according to them. And therein, one of the commentators, like Mathara, in his Mathara Vritti, is bringing these names such as Hari, Haraha, and Hiranyagarbha. Now you cannot say that it is Nirishwara Sankhya, because Ishvara is referred to as Hari and Haraha, the Hiranyagarbha. So Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesha. It is interesting that Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesha, the Trinity, is nomenclature of this Mahat Tattva. Now when the Trinity is accepted, why is it that Vedantins have looked down upon, deprecated, or critically condemned the Sankhya as Nirishwara Sankyam? So this Nirishwara Sankhya is something which is the notion and idea generated by Neo-Vedantins. In classical Sankhya, you don't get Nirishwara Sankhya and Seshwara Sankhya. There is only one Sankhya. And even in so-called Nirishwara Sankhya, here just now I gave you a testimony that Hari, Hara and Brahma have been mentioned. The Trinity has been mentioned. The Trinity of the Hindu philosophy has been mentioned. There is no point in criticizing Sankhya Karika as the text of Nirishwara Sankhya. Anyway, these were the interesting nomenclatures that we get in Mathara Vritti of Sankhya Karika. Yukti Dipikakar is another commentary on Sankhya Karika. He also in the same 22nd Karika says, Linga Matram Mahat Tattvam Tadhi Layam Gacchati Pradhana. So, now we are embarking upon this particular aspect. Whether the Sankhya should be really considered as either Nirishwar and Seshwar. So now we are embarking upon a new point of description, that the classical Sankhya, the Sankhya which has come from Kapila Mahan Muni is said to be Adya Vakta. Sankhyasya Vaktaha Kapilaha, Mahabharat, Shanti Parva. Sankhya's Vakta Kapilaha. So Kapila is known to be expounder of Sankhya philosophy, and Kapila is said to be incarnation of Vishnu. There are 24 avatars of Vishnu. Apart from 10 avatars, there are 24 avatars mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. And one of those avatar is Kapila avatar. Knowledge. Kapila means Sankhya. Sankhya means knowledge, wisdom. So Sankhya Darshanam, Sankhya Shastra is actually wisdom Shastra. And it was expounded by Kapila Mahamuni, who was Vishnu avatar. And the history tells us that Kapila gave the first instruction of Sankhya Shastra to his mother Devahuti. And Kapila has been also mentioned in Upanishads, such as Shveta-Ashvatar Upanishad. The first generation of knowledge that is given to every cycle is by Kapila. And this is expressed in Shveta-Ashvatar Upanishad. That every Kalpa Arambha, there is Kapila Avatara, and Kapila gives the Sankhya Shastra. And therefore, there is no point in deprecating, criticizing Sankhya as something Nirishwar Sankhya. Now let's try to understand the classical Sankhya. The classical Sankhya really gives no room to atheistic branch. It doesn't give rise to atheistic branch. So how and why is that? Will be our topic of discussion in our next session. Just I will give you a clue here to conclude the session today. The concept of Adibhautik, Adidaivik, Adhyatmik, which is in Adhyatma, is also embraced by Sankhya. The Adibhautik, Adidaivik, Adhyatmik concepts are also accepted by the Sankhyas. Even the so-called Nirishwar Sankhya, they have accepted Trivida Dukkham, which is Adibhautik, Adidaivik, Adhyatmik. And the whole cosmos, the whole creation is of the nature of Adhyatmik Adhishtanam, Adidaivik constitution, Sangatanam, and Adibhautik Avishkara, manifestation. So let's try to delineate on it, but that is in next session. Namaskar all of you.